Hey guys, welcome back to Solo Recap. Today we're going to recap the movie called Gone Girl, released in 2014. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The film starts on July 5th, and it's the 5th anniversary of Nick and Amy's marriage. Nick and his sister Margot run a bar, so Nick goes there to check on things. The siblings start talking, and Nick tells her that his marriage is going downhill very fast. However, he remembers that things weren't always so bad. In fact, when he met Amy 7 years ago in New York, they fell deeply in love. They were both writers and met at a party. After the party, Nick took Amy to show her a sugar storm outside a bakery. And that's when their whirlwind romance started. 2 years later, the couple attended the book printing party of Amy's mom's famous book. At that party, Nick proposed to Amy in front of everyone. Everything was perfect, but now Nick says they don't even talk to each other. He's talking to his sister when he receives a call about his cat. Nick goes home to find his cat wandering outside. He takes it back home, and there he sees what looks like a crime scene. He also can't find Amy anywhere, so Nick calls the cops, and Detective Rhonda is assigned to the case. She finds the crime scene to be strange. She also spots blood drops in the kitchen. Nick is taken to the police station where his DNA samples are taken, and Rhonda asks him about Amy's friends. Nick says Amy didn't have any friends, and this surprises Rhonda. After some general questions, Nick decides to inform Amy's parents. While he is making the call, he sees that his father is in police custody. His father is a senile old man who runs from his old age home pretty often. So Nick takes his father back to the caring facility, and then he goes to Margot's house. Margot isn't a fan of Amy, but she is still worried about her well-being. While Nick is taking a nap, Rhonda finds out that his house and the bar are in Amy's name. She also finds a strange letter in the underwear drawer. The next morning, Nick meets up with Amy's parents, and they are holding a press conference. The family asks everyone to look for Amy and inform them. At the press conference, reporters ask Nick to smile in front of Amy's missing poster, and Nick happily obliges. Amy's parents tell the officer about Desi, who had a bad breakup with Amy in high school. They also mention Tommy, who allegedly assaulted Amy almost 10 years ago. After this, Rhonda shows Nick the letter. She explains that Amy plays treasure hunt with him every anniversary. So they read the clue, and it leads to Nick's office in the community college where he teaches part-time. They find a second letter there, along with some panties, and it's all very suspicious. The second letter talks about a brown house, but Nick says he doesn't know it. But in reality, he knows that the brown house is actually his dad's house, so he goes there in the evening. There, he finds the third letter, but for some reason, the alarm is not turning off, and it alerts Rhonda and the other officer who get there. Nick tells him he was just checking on the house, and then leads them outside. The next day, everyone is starting a search operation to find Amy. He sees Desi at the reception, but doesn't say anything to him. The search party doesn't find anything, while Rhonda is approached by a woman named Noelle, who says she's Amy's best friend. That night, Margot again asks Nick if he's hiding something, but he says no. However, he is hiding his affair, and his lover Andy comes to the house that night. Andy is his student, and Nick wanted to divorce Amy and marry Andy. The couple spends a romantic night together, while Detective Rhonda finds out that Amy was trying to buy a gun illegally. The next morning, Nick is asking Andy to leave, but Margot sees them and she is angry. She explains how this affair will make Nick a suspect in everyone's eyes. However, he explains that he didn't want to be with Amy anymore, and he was ready to get a divorce. Margot shows him how a reporter named Ellen is portraying him as a villain. On the same show, they see the famous defense attorney, Tanner, and Margot wants to hire him. That night, the community is holding a vigil for Amy. And there, Nick tells everyone that he loves his wife and he didn't make her disappear. However, Noelle shows up there and she claims that Amy was pregnant and Nick was angry at her. So Nick has to run back home where Detective Rhonda confronts him. She explains how they found a lot of wiped out blood in the kitchen and it belongs to Amy. They question why Nick took out life insurance for Amy. They also mention that Nick's bank account was under a debt of $100,000, but Nick says he didn't buy all the things that his account is showing. He doesn't know what's going on, so he says that he needs a lawyer, and he won't talk to police anymore. He reads the third blue letter once more and realizes that Amy is referring to Margot's woodshed. He sneaks out of his house to find all the newly bought stuff hidden inside the woodshed. Meanwhile, Rhonda and her associate are trying to look for the final clue to arrest Nick. They find a diary in Nick's father's house. The diary belongs to Amy, and she outlines how their marriage wasn't going too well when they both lost their jobs in the recession of 2007. Nick started drinking too much, and he spent all of his days playing video games. Then his mother got sick, and he forced Amy to come live in the small town, and even bought a bar with her money. She explains how she always wanted kids, but Nick one day pushed her down when she talked about having a child. She started fearing for her life, and that's why she wanted to buy a gun, just to feel safe. The police decided to make Nick the prime suspect, while Amy is still alive. She planned the whole thing and used Noelle to create fake rumors about Nick's angry behavior. She even used Noelle's urine to pass the pregnancy test. She bought all those expensive things and hid them inside the shed. Then, on the day of her anniversary, she took out her blood and poured it all over the floor. She created a fake struggle scene and then drove away. She did all this because she hated how Nick took her for granted and had an affair. She plans to take her life one day and make sure that Nick spends his entire life behind bars. To stay away from the limelight, she goes to a motel and pays via cash. She has saved up a lot of money that she keeps in her fanny pack. She even befriends a girl, Greta, who is staying with her boyfriend. Meanwhile, Nick decides to hire Tanner. He meets him, and Tanner suggests that Nick talks to Tommy and Desi. Tommy tells Nick that Amy is a real psychopath who staged a scene to make herself a victim and blamed the sexual assault on him. She did all of this because Tommy wanted to break up with her. After this, Nick goes to Desi's house, but Desi says he doesn't want to talk, and he asks Nick to leave. At the airport, Nick watches the show where Ellen is calling him the husband who killed his pregnant wife. Amy also watches this broadcast with Greta, and she's really happy about it. However, she accidentally shows Greta and her boyfriend the fanny pack with all the money. The next day, Tanner meets up with Nick and Margot. He says that Nick has to admit his affair publicly and also tell the cops about the hidden goods inside the shed. The cops, on the other hand, are confused because Rhonda thinks the whole scene is staged. She is still willing to charge Nick. Meanwhile, Greta and her boyfriend force themselves into Amy's room and steal her money. They know that Amy is hiding something and she won't call the cops, so they just walk out of that place. Now, Amy is stuck and she has no money, so she asks Desi to meet up with her. The next day, Nick is getting ready to go on a reality TV show, where he will admit his affair and all his failures as a husband. But even before his show is recorded, Andy calls a press conference and tells everyone about the affair. Tanner says Nick has lost, but Nick still wants to do the talk show, and after the show, everyone is shocked at how good Nick was on the show. While they're going home, Desi meets Amy, and he is positively surprised to see her. He tells her that he will take care of her from now on, and he takes her to his lake house. He's a psychotic lover, and he just wants to be with Amy. He shows her how the house has a lot of cameras. The next morning, the talk show is being aired, and Amy watches alongside Desi. At the talk show, Nick admits that he is a bad man, but he says he didn't murder his wife. He explains how he couldn't be the perfect husband to a great woman, and this caused problems in their marriage. However, he says that he still wants to be with Amy, and he begs her to come back. Amy is amazed to see how impressive Nick is at the interview. However, Desi is not happy, and he tells Amy that she can't go back. He also wants to move in with her in a couple of days. Meanwhile, Nick and Margot are celebrating the good ratings that Nick is receiving after the talk show. The celebrations are cut short when the police find the hidden goods inside the shed, and they take the siblings to the police station. At the station, they show Nick all the evidence against him, and also show him the rod that has Amy's blood all over it. They finally charge Nick for the murder of his wife. Amy, on the other hand, tells Desi that she will be waiting for him at home in the evening. She kisses him before he goes back to work, but she bites his lips and also messes up his clothes. When Desi leaves the house, Amy pours some wine on her clothes and starts to cry in front of a camera, pretending to be hurt. When Desi returns in the evening, she immediately takes him to the bedroom and they start getting intimate. However, these romantic moments turn into a nightmare when Amy slices Desi's throat and he bleeds all over her. On the 30th day of Amy's abduction, Nick wakes up after some commotion outside. He opens the door to see Amy covered in blood coming towards him, and she passes out in his arms. The press is going crazy after watching all of this. Amy is taken straight to the hospital where the FBI and police ask her some questions. She says that Desi abducted her on the day of her anniversary and took her to his lake house. There, he abused her continuously for many days, and she even lost her child. She managed to take him out and somehow made it back to her house. The FBI is happy with her story, but Rhonda knows that Amy is lying, but she can't do anything. When Amy goes back home, Nick asks her straight up if she killed Desi. Amy takes him to the shower, and there she explains how she came back just because she liked how good Nick was in the interview. He doesn't want to be with her anymore, but she says that if he leaves her, the whole world will consider him an animal. She explains how Nick has no choice but to stay with her. The next evening, Amy is holding a press conference where she is explaining what happened to her, and she also says that she wants to save her marriage. All of this is upsetting Nick, and he tells Tanner and Rhonda that Amy killed Desi in cold blood. Rhonda explains that no one can arrest Amy anymore because she has manipulated the evidence very carefully. So Tanner tells Nick that he should stay with his wife and enjoy all the attention he's getting. 5 weeks after Amy's return, Ellen is there for an interview. When Amy is getting ready, she tells Nick that she is pregnant and she used his DNA, so he's going to be the father. Nick is mad and he pushes Amy into the wall, but she says that she won't leave him no matter what. So Nick begrudgingly agrees to the interview. In the evening, Nick tells Margot that he wants to be there for his child, so he won't leave Amy. Margot is crying because she doesn't want her brother to stay with a murderer, but she will support him. The film ends with Nick and Amy watching Ellen's show, where they tell her that they're going to have a baby. Thank you for watching. Feel free to drop a comment below as to what we should recap next. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to turn on notifications. See you in the next video.